for me, for my entire career, thanks to the blessing of the autism community and the incredible teachers and professors I had, I know exactly how to identify the multifaceted, multi-system, real neurophysiological and neurological health challenges that a child with autism is going through. And we're able to separate the root causes and the multifactorial challenges with their biology that a child with autism is having. And we see that and we address that clinically, but that's not them. Welcome to the Experience Miracles podcast, where we help parents find hope, answers, and drug-free help to overcome your child's chronic health challenges. I'm your host, Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be sharing my experiences as both a dad and a doctor on every episode. I can take the latest science and neurology of healing and break it down in the most simple and relatable way possible. We'll take on the toughest topics and answer your biggest questions through interviews with other amazing parents and leading experts, leaving you with practical action steps that you can take to help your child heal and thrive. It's time to expect and experience miracles. Let's get started. Have you ever noticed that no one in the conventional medical system ever asks why or makes even an attempt to find the root cause and discuss natural solutions with you? They just slap on a label, hand over a prescription, and send families on their way. Diagnoses like autism, ADHD, anxiety, SPD, OCD, ODD, the list goes on. They blame genetics, they blame bad luck, they blame chemical imbalances. Here's your diagnosis, here's your prescription, here's your medication, no questions please. And unfortunately, oftentimes it's the same thing in the natural and holistic world where Lyme disease, MTHFR, COMT, pandas, PANS, oh, we're living in this toxic world, we have to hide in our overly awesome clean and organic bubble. All too often, that leaves the patient or parent feeling like they're stuck with that condition and that label now for life as well. And that can be excessively, significantly limiting to the child or the family's potential in the same way. The list also goes on, but none of them are actually an answer to the question that every parent is desperately asking. What is really going on with my child? The diagnosis, the label doesn't give you that answer. Labels don't heal. They don't calm the chaos. They don't help kids sleep, speak, or smile again. But that's exactly what today's system is handing out. Labels instead of answers. Diagnoses instead of direction. And it's time we flip that script. This message is for frustrated parents who feel like they're collecting diagnoses and labels for their children without ever getting real answers or lasting, full, deep root cause solutions. And parents who are ready to understand that the true root cause behind their child's health struggles go way deeper than conventional medicine, and sometimes a lot deeper than even holistic, natural, nutritional care does as well. And then most importantly, be able to take this information and do something about it. Okay, before we get into the most important part of this message, which is there's 4 areas where the diagnosis and the label can actually be helpful to your family. And I want you to know those so you can get the most out of those. You can take the proper perspective and action there, but then there's 4 big areas where that label, that diagnosis could limit your kiddo and take you down a path you don't want to go. But before we dig into that, let's look at why this is such a big issue. 40% of children today are living with at least one chronic condition, and that's the CDC's information, which is always outdated and limited. Other studies, and really just being in practice, shows us that it's over 50%. 1 out of 2 kids being chronically sick is not okay, and most of them have multiple diagnoses: autism, ADHD, allergies, asthma, anxiety, autoimmune condition, pandas, and other ongoing health challenges. We are at an unprecedented level of a health crisis amongst our whole family, and it wasn't even making headlines until recently. Now, thankfully, folks like Senator Kennedy and others are stepping up and saying we need to do something about this, and I pray that they actually will. But it's even more concerning when we look at it in the neuropsychiatric, mental, emotional, behavioral, where antipsychotic medications have increased 50 to 200% in the last 20 years. We're not just seeing more sick kids, we're seeing more kids being labeled, given prescriptions, and being medicated. If we have more access to mental health services, more coverage to health insurance than ever before, why don't we have more health? Why do we have more anxiety, more depression, more ADHD, and more suicide even? because they're not exploring root causes. Right here, even in my home state, they're working right now, because this is a very classic Illinois move, to mandate in the public school system that third graders be screened for mental health disorders. First off, before you get into this too much, just take a very common sense, big picture level. Third graders. Did God design any child at any time to be riddled with anxiety and depression? Do we really think this is just a genetic disorder that is so bad and our kids are so broken and their DNA code supposedly just would be programmed? I mean, literally adaptability, like even if you believe the bogus science of evolution, that wouldn't even add up to us getting sicker, not healthier. So at what even shred of common sense would we accept this as a good idea? What they're looking to do is to screen and flag more kids for more mental health disorders so they can give them more diagnoses, so they can give them more medications. Psychoactive medications are literally made with ingredients that are on the same level as illegal narcotics. What happened to the DARE program in schools? What happened to schools being a drug-free zone? Pharmaceuticals, politicians, profits happened. None of these things are being done with the health. You can watch the press conference from people who aren't even healthy themselves, especially here in the great state of Illinois. And you can go, man, you might as well just come out and say it. You are doing this because the people who paid to get you in office are the people who are paying you to put this policy in play, because they are going to profit so much off of our kids, with more kids having more labels, more diagnoses, more medications. Now, that is an introduction. That is a really starting point to this conversation that I just have to have with you, because it's just true and it's just happening, and we don't have to like it and we don't have to love it. And so far right now, if your child has a true genetic condition and really does struggle with things like autism spectrum disorder, speech delays, behavior challenges, mental emotional health, ADHD, or get into that natural holistic world where it is Lyme disease that you maybe as a parent are battling. It's POTS, it's PANDAS, it's chronic fatigue, it's fibromyalgia. What I know is the number one limiting thing to results we get in our clinic, whether with a child, especially if a child falls into this trap that we're going to talk about next, but even adults, is if that diagnosis, that illness becomes their identity. Because then the medical system fully has its hooks into them, because now they think, I was born this way, I'm broken, there's nothing I can do, I require this treatment, I require this medication just to be somewhat good and make it through the day, so I'm going to take this medication every single day. If you play that tune all the way out, that's why it's built and constructed. That's why your health insurance, which we're going to talk about in a second, is one of, used appropriately, the really good things that can come with a diagnosis, to get services, to get insurance, to get coverage. But why does the health insurance system, horribly named health insurance, just like our healthcare system, which we think of as hospitals and medical doctors, they should not have the name health in them at all. Why does that insurance system, third-party pay for medications, but not your gym membership? Pay for medications, but not chiropractic care. Pay for medications, but not programs that help our communities be more physically active, get outside, have better sleep habits, eat healthier, take supplementations that are proven, like vitamin D and omega-3s, to help with these sort of conditions. Generally, much better than medication, with long-lasting results instead of limiting results and addiction challenges. Why then are none of those services covered if that's the system that was going to get us healthy? And again, before I move into the 4 good reasons, the 4 good things you can get from a diagnosis or a label, and again, we can take that perspective and we can pull the good out of this, right? That's how God made me. I love to see even the negative and learn lessons from it for the positive. And then we'll get into the 4 real negatives even a bit deeper than I have in this pretty long introduction at this point. So here's the conversation we need to be having at a larger scale. It's not working. going to the medical doctor who only knows diagnosis, treatment, medication, doesn't take the time to sit down and ask you questions, get to the root cause, and give you natural solutions. So if we go there to them who work in this way, that's what we're going to get. And if it was working net, why are we getting so much sicker despite taking more medications than pretty much every other flipping country put together? Why are the most medicated countries the most depressed, the most overweight, the most anxious, the most ADHD, have the most autism? The medication route follows the diagnosis. The diagnosis is the business of medicine. So the path I want to take you on with this message is to know when to use them, how to get the best out of them, and then how to get the heck out of there and to a portion that is actually healthcare, to a place, to a provider, to a philosophy, to a perspective, to a plan that actually addresses the root cause and gets real healing happening so that that diagnosis, that label does not become you or your child's identity. So let's talk about 4 places that a diagnosis can actually help. Number 1, access to services. Again, we don't have to like how the system is built, and once you get inside of it, you're probably not gonna. But the truth is, a formal diagnosis can really unlock school-based support programs like IEPs, 504s, speech therapy, OT, and different accommodations that otherwise would probably be denied or be paid for out of pocket by the family if they didn't have that diagnosis. Second, especially we in our practice and our work with PX Docs, we are so blessed to see so many special needs, kiddos who have real, true genetic challenges, kiddos who have had traumatic injuries. And so their diagnoses help unlock state and insurance, and sometimes even different nonprofits and different groups step up and help these families. So many great nonprofits that are amazing. And again, generally the criteria here is to have the diagnosis along with the documented daily struggles, and that can unlock coverage for state-based, and different insurance coverages for therapies, equipment, interventions that really, really, really help that family day to day. So it's a tough conversation for me to have because on the surface, you can tell I get pretty wound up about it, but within it is some good. But within the totality of it, if we leave it as it is, and we don't share this full, different, really freedom and results creating process and perspective with you, it can limit your family instead of serve your family. The third thing is you can get some legitimacy and some validation. This is important for parents who know, hey, my child is struggling with speech and communication, with socialization, with these different things. And you know what? Over time, you just get tired of having to go through this long, drawn-out explanation to other parents, teachers, people in the community, medical providers, and you're just sick of re-explaining. And you know what happens? Sometimes that diagnosis helps you be able to say to them, this is where we are. This is what we're working on. This is what my child is going with. And then number 4, you have structured support pathways. The one thing I really love about a diagnosis on the positive side of things is it can give you the ability to identify different providers or different support networks that and different programs that are really built and perfectly crafted to support your child, your family in a major way. But let's come back to kind of the main thesis of this message. How would a label and a diagnosis limit your child's potential? Or maybe this message is hitting hard with you because you feel like something going on with your health, a certain diagnosis or a certain label, is holding you back as well. I'll finish with my personal story with Lyme's disease before we get done. But let's talk about the 4 areas where it can really hold us back. Number 1, it creates an identity shift to we're broken. Kids and parents can start to see that diagnosis as who they are, not just what they have, as something that is not fixable, that is static and stuck, and instead of dynamic and plastic and able to be healed, which we know that the vast majority of conditions really are, even the ones that you're so often told in the medical system cannot be, like autism and so forth. And creating this fixed mindset lowers the belief, the confidence, the drive, the will to go out and get things happening to make healing happening. And I'll tell you, I've done a whole entire podcast episode on our Experience Miracles podcast about healing is the first essential step. Hope and belief is the first essential step in healing. There's actually research in neuroscience to back that up. It's not just some feel-good statement. It actually changes neurophysiology to the positive healing direction when we know that we can get better. And it works in the other direction as well. When we feel limited, when we buy into this diagnostic victim mentality, it actually limits our health further and makes us sicker. And just overall, number two, we're dealing in society right now with a massive victim mentality where we're labeling everything and everyone, and we're not doing it to empower them. We're doing it to get them to assume they can't change. This is how you are. This is who you are. This is how you were born. And then that allows us again to say, well, if that's us and there's nothing we can do, well, we need these solutions like medications instead of building resilience, adaptability, and overcoming them. One very blessed lesson I had early in my career as I took on postdoctorate training in pediatrics and really in the work of autism. My very first professor and teacher, Dr. Linda, who was teaching us, in the very first 10 minutes of the class, she said, first, let me teach you and share with you the absolute proper way to serve children with autism and families whose child have autism. They're not autistic, they're Owen, and he has autism. There's Sadie, and she has autism. Once we say autistic, and now that becomes the identity of the child, where did their name go? Where did their beautiful creativity, genius, incredibleness? Why would their name be that and that alone instead of expressing all the potential, all the incredibleness that is inside that child with autism? And you can take this conversation and replace autism with whatever other condition you want to fill in the blank. But for me, for my entire career, thanks to the blessing of the autism community and the incredible teachers and professors I had, I know exactly how to identify the multifaceted, multi-system, real neurophysiological and neurological health challenges that a child with autism is going through. And we're able to separate the root causes and the multifactorial challenges with their biology that a child with autism is having. And we see that and we address that clinically, but that's not them. When we see their name, when we hear their name, we don't see that. We see their potential. We see their ability to heal. We see their ability to overcome. We see their ability to be the best Owen, to be the best Oliver, to be the most incredible Sadie that this world needs, because Sadie's going to do what God designed her to do, and she's going to do it better, more, with full expression if we can get her out of the neurophysiological struggles that are limiting, that come with autism. But let's not let the diagnosis be another final nail in the coffin of limiting the potential and the expression of a child with autism or any other condition. Number 3 way that this can be limiting is a medication dependency cycle. This has been what I've been talking about the whole time, but the system is built upon this. You go through, you plug your systems into I can't believe that the majority of, conventional medical doctors who don't do surgery or don't work in the emergency room, really what do? They stand there, they listen to all your systems, they have memorized the DSM, and they just say, oh, that's this diagnosis. Then after they aggregate all your symptoms together, they take out the prescription pad, they used to write it on hand. Now they go into the computer and they plug in the symptoms. That gives you a diagnosis, and then you leave with a prescription, and then you go to the pharmacy and you get the prescription. Nobody ever wants to look for the root cause. The pharmacy, where you're getting there, certainly isn't going to address the root cause. What has always mystified me is that they're not replaced by software and AI. All you're doing is plugging your symptoms into a system. Yeah, I know there's a person standing there, a well-educated, brilliant, hopefully still caring somewhat person, but that person then just plugs it into the software. That software prints out the prescription, or I don't know, haven't had one in 20 years, or they email it over to the pharmacy, I don't know, and you go and you get it, and there you are. So why, it's not even, a lot of times parents report it's not even a human interaction, right? It's just as fast as they can get you a diagnosis, as fast as they can get you a prescription, as fast as they can get you out of that room, go to the next room and do the same thing. And number 4 reason that a diagnosis can be so limiting is it narrows the lens of care options that you may seek out. Because if you focus only on treatments that fit that narrow lane of that diagnosis, you may miss out on other holistic, kind of upstream, multifaceted, just solutions that address the root causes of that condition. I can tell you this in closing. This is a conversation that always has multiple perspectives. So let me share my story just as one more real life, personal, transformative story. I spent my first 20 years of life not being able to fall asleep, struggling with sleep. I spent my first 20 years of life really struggling to pay attention in school, to sit still, to pay attention, to remember when to turn in my assignments, when the test was coming. I'll never forget, even this is my last year before I finally got access myself and became a patient of chiropractic care and found out, again, not that I have ADHD, which I do. I'm going to get to that. Multiple times in college, I would show up for class, which is a bit of a rarity. And then I would show up for class and my friend sitting next to me would be like, "It's good to see that you're here. Probably a good day to come. We have a test today." And I'd be like, "Funny, Rachel and Amy. We don't have a test today." And then literally be watching in horror as the professor was handing out the exam. For 20 years and some change, I struggled with what would very easily be diagnosed as ADHD. And through neurologically-focused chiropractic, addressing the root cause and getting my overstressed, sympathetic dominant, dysregulated nervous system rebalanced and calmed down again safely, naturally. By the way, the coolest thing about getting care for my ADHD, not treatment, not a cure, is that nobody ever said, the chiropractor who saved and transformed my life in this way didn't say, "Hey man, you got ADHD. Here's our chiropractic treatment for that." He said, "Your nervous system is stressed. You are subluxated. You are dysregulated. No wonder you can't sleep. No wonder you can't focus. No wonder you can't remember what you read 5 minutes later. Your brain is fried. We can fix that." And then through a series of about 24 to 36 adjustments over 2 to 3 months, I went from failing out of college in my junior year to all A's my senior year, to chiropractic school. In undergrad, you take about 12, 14, 16, 18 credits per semester. In chiropractic school, you take between 30 to 35 credits per trimester, meaning 30 credits or more 3 times a year, plus 4 parts of boards. And I only got 1 B all the way through. Now, what changed in my story with ADHD? My genetics? No, they don't change during the course of your life. The way my nervous system functions. Now, what is different about me and how I address my ADHD versus how the medication from a diagnosis, victim mentality system would like you to look at you or your child's ADHD? I love mine. Mine is a superpower. I am a raging bull by God's design. I get more done by 7 a.m. than 90% of people do in 7 days total. Because yes, my brain goes hardwiring on natural default. Yes, I am defaulted to the gas pedal. So you know what I've needed to do? Absolutely learn to harness, stimulate my brake pedal, my vagus nerve. I know that I have to get adjusted on the regular. I know that I need to work out on the regular. I know that I need to sleep really well, have clean nutrition, take a couple supplements if I'm really stressed out and want to reset that way. I know that I need to stay connected to my creator and to my purpose. I know I need downtime and creative free time with my farm, with my family. I know exactly what I need to do to entirely turn my ADHD from a deficit and a disorder to a superpower. And I'm going to give you one more. I'm going to get a little extra personal with this one, which is having me go longer than normal. But if you watch my videos or listen to our podcast, you know that that's how it goes with my content. The truth is, I've also had my butt kicked by Lyme's. I had an acute tick bite. I had the red ring rash. That's the only medication I've taken in the last 20 years. It was a clear bacterial infection. I had a fever of what felt like 205 degrees. I was hallucinating. I didn't feel well. And so I took 3 days. Just kidding. I totally did the entire 10. 3 days of antibiotics, got all the way back to better, and thought I was scotch-free. About 18 to 24 months later, chronic fatigue like I've never experienced set in. Brain fog like I've never experienced set in. dead, heavy legs. I was in my lower 30s. I should not have been feeling like this. I was well adjusted. We eat clean. I was eating paleo. I was CrossFitting. I take really, really good care of myself. And my nervous system just crashed out. Now, I mistakenly at that time chalked it up to, we have 3 kids, a 4th one on the way. Our practice was absolutely on fire. I was adjusting 400 to 500 patients a week by myself. I was starting to teach our Perfect Storm protocols to other chiropractors and get the word out about the mission and the message that God called us to. I was a busy little fella. So I just chalked it up to that. So I tried to change my diet, didn't get through it. Tried to add a few supplements, didn't get through it. I needed to know that it was actually secondary Lyme's co-infections to get access for me. There was an incredible treatment called Lyme Stop that was exactly what I needed to reset, reboot, recalibrate my body to handle Lyme's. And it did. And I healed and recovered fully. And this is going back way over a decade. And still today, the last thing I identify with is Lyme's. We punched that sucker. I used to get like a little tick. That tick got squashed, all right? Now, what I know is a lot of patients with Lyme's, a lot of patients with pandas, a lot of patients with these things. Once we start to learn more about a chronic condition like that, we start to become that condition in our identity and our mentality. And what that does is it limits our belief to be able to overcome that condition. And I actually want to finish this message by, I'm most comfortable by a million miles teaching neurophysiology and biology, but I'm doing better with every day and every year of my life to understand the most important book in the world, which is the Bible. And what we know for sure is that it's not our actions, it's not how we're born, it's not the family we're born into, it's not our genetic code. There's no label and there's no diagnosis. Hey, I diagnose you as a Christian, you're going to heaven. It's our belief, it's our faith that we know that our Lord and Savior created us to be disciples here on earth, to live an incredible life here on earth. And you know what else he created us? To be healthy. So anytime I look at it and I say, okay, well, if I just buy into this secondary, you have chronic Lyme's, you're going to have brain fog, you're going to be tired, that explains everything. Just accept it, live with it, there you go, do your best. That's not at all what God designed us to do. And belief is more healing than beef liver, okay? Shout out to all my beef liver supplement homies. It's a really great supplement, but it doesn't pack near the punch. It's kind of funny that analogy dropped in my head at the end of this one, because beef liver is pretty punchy, okay? If you take that supplement, you're like, whoa, where did all this energy come from? Well, nothing will bring you more energy than the belief, the knowledge, and the conviction that your diagnosis is not your identity, that your label will not limit you, but it's an opportunity to lean in, find a doctor who believes in your ability to heal, helps you address the root cause and get through to the other side, builds a plan in partnership with you that fosters, creates, and generates that level of healing, and away you go. And if you need help taking that path, if you feel like you or your child's diagnosis and label and path into more medication and more medicalization of your family's life, if you're done with that road and you kind of don't know where to turn next or how to get started, we do. We got you. Comment below, send us a DM, hit the link in our bio, and check out our website. We're here for you to give you hope, answers, not a label, not a limit, but a drug-free, natural action plan to heal.